Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Lilia Fontana, Executive Directrix of Firehouse Projects. We are a nonprofit cultural organization in South Florida dedicated to cultivating and presenting the fine arts and performance arts and educational programs to our community. We are delighted to welcoming you to another Zoom lecture of Snapshots from the Cuban Diaspora An Odyssey in Images. This is a series of virtual chats and photographs honoring the generation of refugees fleeing Cuba throughout the decades of the revolution. In this very political moment in our lives, today's presentation and future events under this title is not political, despite that we just heard from Coral Way a mirage of honking and whatever, caravan of people, and it doesn't matter which party. They're out there. Wonderful. I think it's a great spirit for the first time in our lives. So there is no agenda here, but simply a storytelling as told by the actual people that lived it. Also, this type of odyssey is not exclusive to Cubans, and we're very aware of that. It is a story of countless immigrants that founded this country and will continue to come to this country. I must mention that my inspiration for this project was Marilyn Morales' musical, Always Remember. Hi, Marilyn, and there she is.
Hi.
And definitely an inspirational musical to everyone. Stay tuned for the world premiere date being planned to take place in the spring of 2022. Unfortunately, it also took a turn in March. We were going to do it this year, right? And the pandemic got to it again. So I think we're all on board with this, all the cultural arts. That's why this is so viable and important to continue. And thankfully, some of the foundations and grants are stepping up to the plate for us. Absolutely. So now, I would like to introduce to you our very special guest lecturer. She's the founder and owner of Casa Artali in Miami. She's an attorney, and she has been a Miami-Dade County Public School administrator for over 40 years. So please, I know that ages you. Please welcome Alina Diaz.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's so funny. We've been talking about this for a few days, and I was so casual about it. And all of a sudden, I'm a little nervous as it happens now. But thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. I guess there's two folds of how you became involved in this, because we were actually going to host this at Casa Artali, and Casa Artali had to close. So we're doing it virtually. And then you submitted a bunch of your images as well to this project. So, so tell us about what it was like for you and your family, and what was the process, and how was your life like in Cuba? Let's start there.
Okay. All right. So briefly, I picked pictures from my life in Cuba that were a variety of our experiences. And obviously mostly very positive. I come from a very small town called Morón in the province of Camagüey.
Nothing to do with El Gallo de Morón.
Oh, absolutely to do with El Gallo de Morón. That was one of our biggest, claims to fame, where the gallo actually was a huge sculpture of a rooster. And every morning at 6 o'clock and every evening at 6 p.m., it would crow, and you could hear it throughout the entire town. So it was El Gallo de Morón. And the funny thing about the tragic thing about the Gallo de Morón was that when Castro took over, one of the first things that the milicianos did was that they grabbed the gallo and trashed it all over town. They had a truck, and they pulled it behind a truck and the gallo was like destroyed. So there's
Oh
a
my
saying
God.
which I'll have to say. There's a saying that we'll have to say in Spanish, and I'll translate. It says, when something bad happens to you, people say, lo dejaron como el gallo de Morón, sin plumas y cacareando. So if something bad happens to you, say you were left like the rooster of Morón, without feathers but still crowing, you know. So
Yes.
anyway, I think we're diverging.
Yes, but that's okay. It's part of the folklore, which is what this is all about.
Yeah. So so are we gonna show the picture? So you want me to just talk briefly first, or have?
We're ready.
Okay. So I picked pictures from my hometown. This was before when Castro had. This is before Castro arrived. I think this is 1955. And just to show that even though we were a tiny town, Morón was like, I think 19,000 people on the broad, greater Morón. And but we still had carnivals, and we had, you know, all these festivals. That's my brother, my older brother, in the Mexican hat in the middle. My father was very involved in the Rotary Club, so this is a Rotary float. And for us, what I remember in Cuba was really parties and parties and parties and gatherings.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, can I raise my? No, wasn't someone there in that float related to you?
I mentioned that my brother, my older
Oh,
brother,
okay,
was
I didn't.
the
Your
little
older brother.
Mexican.
Which
Yeah,
one? The
the little
Maria?
Mexican,
The little,
the little
okay.
Mexican boy. So it was like, you know,
Okay.
Rotary International. So these are kids. Actually, they're all like our neighbors. My father was the president of the Rotary Club then, so he just put all his friends and relatives on the float. But it was meant to represent the international aspect of the Rotary Club. But the carnivals were big events. This I picked just to show, you know, I'm not a religious person or anything like that, but it was the custom and the tradition. Like if a business was opening, that you would have a not just a reception and a big celebration, but a priest would always come and you know, bless the business. This is a car dealership that my father actually opened in Morón. And if you notice, my mother is the woman on the extreme right hand side of the photograph, and she's pregnant, and that's me inside her belly at the time. And my brother is standing next to my mom, my father next to my mom, and this lady with the peak, pointy neck behind the priest, almost to the left of the priest, was my father's secretary. And I have great stories about her. She had a little office, is one of the few offices that was air conditioned at the time. So I would go over there and sneak and hang out with her. And she would let me, she smoked at the time. It was like horrible. You walked in there and you'd die of smoke. But she would let me take a puff of her cigarette every now and then. And that's the story of my, that was her name. I'll never forget her.
Yeah, people didn't know how bad it was. I know.
Of course, yeah.
You had to sweat or you had to smoke inside the AC, right?
Yeah,
Either way.
the room was, you know, you would open it and smoke would come out. She was a chain smoker. Anyway. So,
Okay.
so of course, you know, beach. I mean, I imagine that every Cuban ever was spent a lot of their times at the beach. I was probably less than a year old then, and that was our times. We usually went to Varadero Beach. We had a little apartment there over the summer, and that's where we hung out. Again, that's my family at the beach. My father, my brother, me, and the little, you know, lifesaver thing. My mom in the middle, my mom's sister, and my little cousin. This is this is kindergarten or preschool, probably kindergarten. It's still in Morón. This is all my whole life was spent in Morón, except for just I'll show you later. One of the last pictures. These are parties again. You know, I mentioned that even though we were a small town, everybody knew each other, and there were like constant celebrations of all sorts of things. So these are one of the parties. My mom and my dad are on the extreme left side. And all the people that were on that and the other at the table were remain very good friends of ours in Miami. We all came more or less around the same time.
Oh.
It was my brother's birthday party. I probably was a little baby then, because I think that's like my brother's third or fourth birthday. My brother's 3 years older than me. Again, more parties.
Very traditional parties. I
Very
remember those.
traditional parties. Another birthday party, that's me in the middle, looking around, and you can see that, you know, it's like almost everyone in town would come, and you know, if you had a kid, you were invited, you know, so they were very large.
So this
gathering.
is the population of Moronga in the 50s.
Pretty much, yeah. At least those with kids of that age, you know.
Yeah.
And that's my 5th birthday party. One of the last birthdays that I had in Morón. Very soon after that, we moved to Havana because Castro had come in, and my father we almost immediately moved within months, within a year for sure. We were living in Havana trying to get ourselves out of Cuba.
What year was that, more or less?
So this would have been 50, well, actually, that was still 58 or something like that, if I'm going by my age. So a year after that, we moved to Havana.
Right.
Probably
59?
early 60s. Yeah, because Castro came in the 1st of January, you know, so all of the 59, we probably stayed in Havana very late, probably late at 59, we were already in Havana.
Oh. So how was the leaving Cuba? What was the process? You had to leave to be near the airport,
you know,
right?
that was a couple of things that happened that are, you know, almost all Cubans, I guess, have very similar experiences. With us, it was a little different in the sense that most parents sent their children first, and you know, they try to get the kids out of harm's way.
The Peter Pan.
Yeah. So as soon as we got to Havana, my parents applied for visas for my brother and I, and we waited. And my father waited because he had his properties and his businesses, and he wanted to basically leave them with friends and relatives. Apparently, what I understood, that if homes were being lived in, whoever lived there was able to remain living there. But if you abandoned the house and it was empty, then the government would take it over. So whatever properties my father had, he basically tried to, you know, put people in, cousins or relatives that were planning to stay, or friends, and get rid of his inventory, you know, the cars and whatever he had. He got rid of it before he even applied for a visa. And what happened was that we applied for a visa for the kids, and like almost a year passed and we still didn't have our visa. And my parents were then ready to come. So they applied for their visa and they got it within a week or two. It was incredible. And the kids still didn't have their visa. So my parents went crazy. It's like, oh my God, we can't leave our kids behind. But he went to the embassy somewhere, and he was promised, like, don't worry, we're gonna make sure that your kids get out. And we did. You know, I mean, my parents left. We were left behind with my aunt, and those photographs. And within about a month or so, we were reunited with my parents in Miami. So we were lucky. We were not separated for a long time, and I mean, I know to this day some families were never reunited, never saw their family again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I know a couple of cases that happened, even with the Pedro Pan people.
Yeah.
And now you arrived as an exile family here, finally reunited. What was it like? How did you all assimilate into the new life in Miami?
Well, you know, at first we lived with cousins that were already here, but very soon after, within 3 months, and there'll be pictures of that, within 3 months, I don't know, my father must have borrowed money or something, and he started opening gas stations. So he had a gas station very soon after arriving. But initially, all we did were 3 things. I mean, we went, these are all pictures of Lincoln Road. We spent probably every Sunday either on Lincoln Road or on the beach, is sort of free things that we had to, that were available to us. I remember also going to the airport, and there was an actual rooftop terrace, and we would watch planes coming in from that time. But this is Lincoln Road in the early 60s. And as you can see, it's really not that different from what it is today. And my aunt and her husband and my cousin, we all shared a house initially and lived together.
Yeah.
Eventually, we all moved to Northwest 32nd Street. So this is initially where we lived, was very close to where I live now. I mean, I'm a few blocks from St. Mary's Cathedral, and we were a couple of blocks from St. Mary's Cathedral at the time. So it's kind of like
You're going
a circle.
A full circle.
Yeah, we used to play in Morningside Park when we were kids, and I'm blocks away from Morningside Park. But most of our childhood, after living in the Northeast area, we went to the Northwest 32nd Street because almost everyone from Moron ended up on 32nd Street. That entire block was full of Moroneros. I mean, I would say 90% of the block were from the same hometown. So, and we found this out through word of mouth and through community newsletters that we're going to talk about in a little while. So we all ended up in the same place.
You know, I need to go back because we want to continue this trend, but you mentioned to me a story about a doll when you were in the airport about to board, was it?
Yes, yes. We were in what they call La Pecera. Yes.
Yes.
Which is, you know, the holding section where everyone that was ready to depart would then wait for to be called to board. But everyone was searched really thoroughly, you know, I mean, nobody was really carrying anything because you couldn't take anything out, but everybody had a little purse or a little something. And I was carrying a doll. And I remember that, you know, the miliciano, the militia guy says, oh, you know, so what's in the doll? And I'm go, it's like, it's just a doll, you know? So he goes, well, let me see it. And he just grabbed the doll and tore the head off the doll. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, it was like really startling. And he like looking for contraband inside the doll. And then he hands me the doll's head and the doll's body, you know, okay, here, you know, it's like, and you know, everybody's like looking around. It's like, oh my God, you know.
I mean, we laugh now, but imagine that's tragic. How old were you?
I was like 8.5, 9 years old, you know, so yeah, it was, I mean, I wasn't a little child. I took it well, but it was still pretty shocking. You know, what nobody really knew at the time was that like, I really hated dolls. My aunt gave me this doll. I was like, take your doll, you know. So it didn't really affect me that horribly because I didn't really have a connection to the doll, but it was still a shocking thing to see this guy just tear the doll in pieces, you know.
It's like if he does that to a doll, oh my God, what about me? He can just go pull my head off. So it's very intimidating.
So again, this is just us enjoying our Sundays. You know, obviously my family worked like crazy Monday through Saturday, but Sundays we had it off and we always went out. This is actually Bayfront Park in Miami, and it had really pretty gardens. Nothing was there that is there now. There was no Bayside or anything like that. It was truly just a Bayfront Park with really pretty gardens and walks, and so we just would hang out there.
I love the elegance.
And my mother was, she's not elegant here, but my mother was someone who valued, she was very, I don't know, vain or whatever. She really liked to look good.
I think it's the times. I think people dressed up for things. You would go out in the street and you would dress up. Men would wear suits. I mean, for all sorts of things. So it's a different time completely in how we see ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I appreciate the interruptions. It keeps things going here. This is just a picture, you know, my family didn't speak English. And so I think I don't remember how often these classes were, but they took night classes after coming home from work. They would go and take English classes. And of course, because there were no babysitters and we didn't, I would go. I went to these English classes for adults all the time. I think there was 2 or 3 nights a week. And that's my father on the front and right, and my mother to the left of him taking good notes. A funny story of those classes, that those classes were at Jackson High School, actually, which is still there on 36th Street. And right across the street from Jackson, from the high school, from those windows that you see there, you could see there was a department store named Jackson Byron's. I don't know if anybody remembers Jackson Byron's,
Yes.
but Jackson Byron's was there. And, trying to create conversation, the teacher would, ask and start conversation. And he would say I remember one time he said to one of the people, the students, it's like, oh, so what do you see over there? And, he's looking across the street and says, what do you see? I'm thinking that he was asking for a store or something like that. And he goes, oh, Jackson Birong, you mean, so Jackson Birong. And everybody just cracked up because the poor guy, obviously mispronounced. But I think a lot of people ended up calling Jackson Byron's Jackson Birong,
Yes,
it's just a mispronunciation.
exactly, like Publix.
Publix, yeah. So this is just me, a couple of years in after being here. That was my father's first car in the United States, which was a humongous black Impala, 1959 Impala, the one with the big wings in the back. Too bad I don't have the wings in the picture, but it was a fun car. So this was my father's first gas station. It was I think within 3 or 4 months after arriving here, he somehow pulled it off, and obviously you have to see the little banner. So that was probably like when it had first opened. It was a Sinclair station, and on Northwest 54th Street and 27th Avenue, something like that. Everyone that worked at the time, these were full service stations. So obviously that's my mom dressed in a Sinclair shirt. My mom was the one that pumped the gas and checked your oil and cleaned your windshield. That was a neighbor of ours from 32nd Street who probably was either visiting or who knows, she might have helped out at some point. But we all worked there. My brother, I wanted to work that day. I'm the only one that was not allowed to work because I was a little girl. And to this day, I mean, I still am annoyed that everybody worked and I just visited, but. So again, that's the station. And, obviously the people, the last three on the right were visiting their cousins and neighbors. Everyone else, my brother is next to me in the middle, and he must have been, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, and he worked there also. I don't know what the child labor's law were like, but
hey, when you gotta do it, that's the reality. That when you gotta do it, you gotta do it. So
yeah.
Where was this?
I think that's in 54th Street Northwest and around 27th Avenue, more or less. I don't know if that station is still there. Obviously, it's not a Sinclair anymore, but I used to love going. There were always promotions with Sinclair had a little Dino, it was a dinosaur.
Yes.
And I used to always have little floats or little blow up dolls of Dino, the Sinclair dinosaur, and stuff like that.
I remember those commercials. That just popped into my head, that image.
Cuban 15s are like a big deal, and now they have humongous deals for the 15s. And in Cuba, we did have big events. They're not like they are here now. But that was my 15th. Very low key. It was at home and just a cake and some of my friends. It was just a small event, but still a big event in the sense of my 15th years. Oh, this is a little earlier. I don't know how, probably like 12 or 13 there. And the reason for that photograph, it was, I believe that was our first color television. So we
I,
were very proud. We all took turns taking pictures next to our color TV.
hey, it was a big deal. I remember it was
It
a,
was. I love the the NBC Peacock. I mean, we
oh,
would literally just stand there and wait for the peacock to, open up, and you would see. That's when you actually really saw the colors
yeah.
well.
So I was gonna, I mean, we talked about, and you brought some images that Kirk is gonna project for us, or is gonna bring it up. When you showed it to me, I got so excited, and all of a sudden in my mind, it clicked, because I think every immigrant or exile or whatever always ends up moving into an area that's familiar, because you're looking for that familiarity. So I understand that, but I think when you showed me that you had collected the revistas del municipio de Morón, I was floored, because it gelled on me. That is the glue of the Cuban community here and abroad and in other states. People would come once a year, right, to meet
Yeah.
their people from their community, and celebrate and have whatever it was, lunch, dinner, whatever. And I think
Yeah.
every municipio does that. So I just was blown away by
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
reality for me, even though I never attended any, because I felt so disconnected, because my reality was totally different. But my parents were from Cienfuegos, and I know the Cienfuegueros meet every year and all this kind of stuff. I don't know when, but I know there's a couple of Cienfuegueros there. Maybe they'll bring that up in a question or answer later. But talk about what you brought us.
yeah. So I'm from Camagüey, and that's where my father's family was. I mean, from Morón. And my mother was from a tiny little town called Esmeralda, which you see it here. The next to the bottom one is Morón, and the next one above Morón is Esmeralda. So that was like for all the tiny little towns in the Camagüey province. So all these little towns would, share social announcements, events, parties, graduations, and all sorts of things. And honestly, a lot of letters to the editors that people would write in from all over the world sometimes, of who was doing what and where they were and where they had moved to. So everyone stayed connected. Also, it was a major way for all of us to advertise to each other. Like all of anyone that advertised there was from Camagüey or from one of these little towns. So we would support each other's businesses. So that was also financially a way of, promoting ourselves in a very cheap way. The way that these things got distributed was by mail. I mean, everybody paid whatever they wanted. There was no set price. Most people paid $12, like a dollar a month, because we got these were monthly newsletters that were received in the mail. And so they basically covered the postage. Most everyone that contributed articles, etc., there were volunteers. There were people that we were doing this, or they were doing this for, just to keep us together. But every year they would have really large parties where they would select their board, the president of the Camagüeyano Revista and the Morón Revista. And like you said, every community had their own respective newsletters and parties. And the parties were very, big at big hallways and big events. They were attended from people from all over the United States. They would come. So some of the articles that would be published would be like here. There would always be a page of El Morón de Ayer, like from the past, memories of the past. So this was like a graduating class of 1940, and people would always comment, oh, look who's there, and they would see themselves. And so it'd be like past history of the town and activities. And they would all, you can see that there were advertisements on the bottom, graduations. This happens to be someone that, you know, I know Lily knows, and we're still in touch. Lisette Miranda is, you know, one of my family's, her parents were very good friends with my parents. So that was her graduation photo. They would also have, if you want to go to the next one, um, obituaries. That this happened to be my father's obituary, and when my father passed away, so you would find out, you know, who passed, who was ill, who did something great, you know, and so it was a wonderful way of staying in touch.
Well, I guess what I like to bring up is Casa Artali. If you care to discuss how Casa Artali came to be.
Well, you know, I was an attorney for a while. I didn't like being an attorney. Then I basically worked for the school system most of my life. And several years ago, I retired. I still work for the school system, but now I work part-time. And it just so happens that I've always had a tremendous affinity to artists. I just love art. I love artists, and I try to support it, all arts, in whatever way I can. And when I finally decided, like, you know, I'm gonna stop working, and although I'm still working, I wanted to do something for the art community. And you know, Art Basel had become like huge here, and etc. But these events seem to always be large and meant for, you know, established galleries, etc. And I thought, let's try to do something for our local artists. And I just decided, you know, one day, I'm gonna turn my house into a gallery. And basically that's what happened. I've done it because I loved it. I wanted to support artists that were wanting to display their work. And I have a yard that, you know, can really accommodate quite a number of people and artwork. And I started doing it. This is the first exhibit that was in my home, and I enjoyed it so much that from that point on, I said I'm gonna do this at least every 3 or 4 months. And unfortunately, I only got to do 3, and then COVID hit. But it's something that I actually had another Willie Baez, a local artist, was going to exhibit on March 27th, and unfortunately, we had to cancel that. But they were pretty well attended. We typically did them over 3 days, a weekend. We would have the opening on Friday, late afternoon, evening, early evening, so that we would still have the daylight for the outside. And so that would be the opening. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, it would be open from, like, you know, 3 to 7 or 8 o'clock, however long people wanted to stay. And, you know, it was great. And I always meant it to be as a support for artists. So whoever exhibited, if they sold anything, they kept 100% of the proceeds. I've never, you know, people, you know, were wondering if I was doing this. There's nothing in it for me other than great pleasure. And I've enjoyed it tremendously. I can't wait to do it again. And I know that hopefully we started talking about doing something soon. And I know hopefully we'll mention that a little bit towards the end.
Alina, let me jump in real quick. On this first exhibit, do you have any names of any of the artists who were?
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, this artist was actually staying with me at the time. Her name is Isabel Proust, and she should be in Miami anytime soon.
Where is she from originally?
She's from. She was living in California. She moved to Miami. She's originally from France.
Oh.
But she's here every winter.
Oh.
And this one is Maria Lino. Maria Lino is we met we were kids. I met Maria Elena when we were like 14 or 15 years old. We went to the same high school. We graduated from the same high school, and we went to school in New York. So I stayed in touch with her there, and to this day, she's a dear friend of mine, and she's a very accomplished artist. She's been the winner of the Cintas Award at least twice, maybe three times, which is Cintas is a very prestigious award given to Cuban exile artists. Um, and she was doing these tapestries at the time.
I
That's
think
what
it's
she,
Cuban descent because Cintas has been around for
maybe from Cuba, maybe Cuban descent. Yes, you don't have to be an exile. In fact, I don't think Maria, herself is an exile. She's of Cuban descent.
yeah.
Yeah, Maria has been here since the 50s, before Castro.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just basically take everything down from my walls and put up the artist's work, and then whatever we can put outside, then we do that also. There was another exhibit also.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Cavazos, Taylor Cavazos, I'm sorry. Very young woman. I met her at some other art event, and we started talking, and she was so excited to have an exhibit, and it was a lot of fun. She actually, while doing the exhibit, she actually painted some work in the yard here. So it was kind of fun, people watching her do her work.
Is she from Miami?
She lives in Miami now also, but originally I think she's from Texas. She's actually Mexican American.
Oh, and do we say Happy Dia de los Muertos today?
That's actually, that's funny because
very appropriate.
Yeah. So here she is. She was actually doing a painting of my little dogs. And that's it for Casa Artali. I hope that we are able to get back, especially now that the weather is cooler. I was thinking that it might be safe to hold events outside and maybe just limit, the number of people so that, we don't take any risks. But I'm looking forward to get it going again. I was also hoping to extend it to not just visual arts, but maybe have small concerts or poetry readings or other art.
Jump in and ask you, how do you see Casa Artali in the future, like in the next 5 years or?
Well, that's what I hope that will happen, that I'm able to continue doing this. I have a list of artists that have expressed interest in showing their work. So as soon as we're able, I see this happening again. I was really disappointed that Willie, he had even, printed a bunch of invitations and everything. So hopefully we'll pick that up. But yes, I would love to have, a small, I have a flute player that is just amazing that I wanted to have come over and give us a concert.
Well, then this is, Kirk has your Facebook page. So if you're interested, anyone that's watching, make sure you sign on to her Facebook page and follow Casa Artali for future events.
Yeah, I also have, I'm on Instagram, and now that, since I haven't been able to do any more exhibits, what I've been doing is taking a lot of walks. I'm walking a lot, and so every now and then I'm showing art, like street art that I run into on my walks, and sharing those through Instagram. I should put them up on the Facebook page also.
Yes,
I hadn't
I've
even
seen
thought
those.
about it.
I've seen
Yeah.
those on Instagram. Now, is there anything else you want to add before I open the mic to question and answers?
Let let me look at my, if I had notes, but I think we've touched on most things that we said we would touch on.
Okay. All right. If there are anyone out there interested in asking Ali any questions or any comments.
No videos, no.
Hi, Aluna. Any more pictures of me when I was little?
Ritz. Oh, that's so funny.
I
that
love
you're
to see
on.
you. My
Oh,
God.
hilarious. Oh my goodness. Where are you? I don't see you.
I know. You don't. I don't want you to see me.
Oh, okay. So this is she's like my little sister. She is
That's
my
right.
little sister, but she is the sister of my brother's wife, and she lived in 32nd Street, and that's where initially we all met. And I took Ritz. Her name is Maritza, what we call her Ritz. I took Ritz to her first day of school in kindergarten.
That's right.
At Buena Vista Elementary, and we're still close. We're family.
And I don't call her Alina. I call her Aluna. So I don't know why, but after a long, long time.
Glad you're here, Ritz.
It was great seeing you.
I would like to say that I really enjoy looking at all those pictures. They are fabulous. They bring back like good memories and just, it's good.
Good.
I'm glad. I think we all have a history, but I think it's good to even look at some. It's kind of voyeuristic, but I think there's a pleasure here because we identify with everything you touched on. We identified with those images, with the parties and all the cakes and the this and the piñatas, So I think it's a kind of a feel good for me project, and that's how it was born. But any other?
Well, I can say also as a gringo husband to my Cubanita, every opportunity I get to learn about her culture is thrilling to me. You might notice the logo behind me. Always remember that the musical that she's written about the Cuban American experience, and it's a lot of fun. I'm learning something every single time we have these sessions.
Cool.
My mom was telling me earlier, a few days ago, that she also had that those news magazines, from her town. And I mean, it's really cool that, they kept in tune with each other. I think that's really cool.
And in some cases, they might still exist. I have lost contact with them, but I know that right through the year 2000 something, I was still getting them, and they were still having these parties. So,
well, Christy, that doesn't want to unmute herself, still gets her Unión de Reyes ones. So I guess it depends on the municipio if there's more, if the members are really active and want to keep it up, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. It's very educational.
Good.
Cool.
Really.
Good.
Thank you for joining us, Jack.
Great.
I mean, it's a kind of, in the Americas, so to speak, it's kind of a universal thing for us. We're all kinds of immigrants anyways, from Europe, from Africa. Well, Africa's a different story, but from Europe and Asia and whatnot. So.
But what I find interesting is that depending when you left, some things that you went through, like what she went through, what I went through, and inside some people afterward. And in doing my musical, I found out there's a lot of people that are here in United States. What they went through was similar from Cuba. I find that fascinating. I mean, it's like you were talking about the inventory, and it's like it made me remember that when we left from Cuba, they came to the house and they took an inventory and of the things you had and the things you had to leave behind and all that. So
Wow. Yeah.
Why was Piedrecita left out of the Camagüey newspaper?
I had nothing to do with it. I have no idea.
Blame it on the gringo.
Yeah. I was just wondering. That's where my mommy was born.
I don't know. It's so funny, but Ritz,
Yes.
I don't know if she's still there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you the one that's saying that?
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, no wonder. Yeah, because her mom was from Piedrecita.
Yes.
I have no idea. I don't know. It should have been there.
I know.
An oversight of an editor.
Gonna have to complain.
Yeah.
Well, there will be future editions of Snapshots from the Cuban diaspora. Maybe we'll have a chance to add some more photos the next time.
Yes.
why did you call it Casa Artali?
Oh, I wanted it to sound it like designy, and I couldn't go. I at first I didn't call it anything. I was just having these events, and somebody said, you need to give it a name, and the Casa Artali, basically, my name is Alina, but everybody calls me Ali. So it was Art Alley, but I didn't want it to be Art Alley. I wanted to sound Italian or something, so it's Artali, and that's how the name came.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great.
And it's Ali's house.
And it's at my house, yeah.
Now, by the way, before we lose anyone else, we wanted to mention another upcoming event that everyone's going to want to put on their calendar. Yes, Lily?
Yes. No, I was going to say yes. Go for it.
Here we go. I'm going to share this on our screen. You'll be hearing about it if you stay tuned to the Conservatory and to Firehouse Projects. But we are going to be presenting on December 13th, that's Sunday, a completely apolitical, non-confrontational, family-friendly international holiday celebration. If you like Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, even if you're agnostic or entirely ecumenical, this is for you. We're going to do beautiful music. We're going to have some comedy. We didn't have a chance to list all of the wonderful artists that we've invited because we just basically cooked this up a few days ago. But stay in touch because we have people from California, Massachusetts, New York, France, Russia, Canada.
And it's safe.
It's all Zoom. Yes, all Zoom.
Absolutely.
And how do we stay in touch with you?
These are some good things to hang on to. There's Casa Artali, firehouseprojects.org. You can also look us up on Facebook, just Unconservatory. And Marilyn's musical, which you're going to be hearing a lot, is Always Remember, but the site is alwaysremembermusical.com. Yeah. And yes, absolutely. Take a screenshot,
yes.
Everybody. And
great, thank you.
Thank
by
you.
By the way, Kirk, we need to add Firehouse Projects. We're on Facebook and Instagram.
There you go.
So we need to add to that for the next time.
Yeah, and I mean, bottom line is just keep staying in touch with us on social media. It's a wonderful thing, and if you found out about this, you will certainly find out about everything we do. And one thing we've noticed is some of our emails came back just because people have their spam settings. So if you know someone who's not getting a Firehouse or Unconservatory email, tell them to accept our emails, and that way you'll get everything that we're sending to you.
So on behalf of Firehouse Projects and the Unconservatory, this is Lilia Fontana, wishing you all a fabulous rest of the afternoon and the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.